Hi guys, it's Andy from Man City Fan TV. Well, I'm here with a special episode and it's a double header today. So what I'm going to ask is, who are you?
Hi Andy, good morning mate. My name's Anthony Catterson, originally from Salford, but now residing in wonderful sunny Atlanta.
Brilliant.
I'm Stuart and Anthony's younger brother, living in Sydney for the last 19 years. So originally from Higher Broughton. So looking forward to today and watching the boys this afternoon.
Excellent. Well, what we've got for you today is, as we always do, we've got 5 questions for the guests. So the first question coming up is, can you remember your first Manchester City game?
Well, we were debating this the other day, and it's like most of us, I guess, it's really difficult to remember what the first game was. But thanks to the brilliant database on Blue Moon, I was able to go back and see exactly what the game was. It was actually a League Cup tie in October 1980. Me and Stuart went there. My mum took us. We played Notts County. We beat them 5-1, and there were a couple of things that were memorable. The first one is that Dennis Stuart got 4 goals. And I don't remember much about the goals, although you can see a YouTube clip online. But what I do remember is late in the second half, and bear in mind the ground was only half full, he was running down the right wing. It was absolutely teeming down with rain. Everybody was freezing. And I think because it was 4-1 at the time, everybody just wanted to get off the pitch. And he actually stopped and put his foot on the ball and shouted to a woman in the crowd and tapped his wrist and said, "How long's left?" We were too far away to hear what she said. But he ended up going on and scoring another goal. But yeah, long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I was debating whether it was earlier than that, because that would have made me 9, and I was pretty confident I went earlier. I do remember that game that Anthony mentioned. I remember being on the Piccadilly wall in the Kippax, and I remember jumping off that wall when the crowd scored. And I would have been younger than 9, but I just can't remember the actual game. So I'd have to say, for the one that I remember, it'd definitely be the Notts County game.
Super. Stuart, can you just turn your camera a little bit for me, mate? Just to that's it. Super. If you could keep it there, that'd be great. On to your next question. So looking at it, we're going to ask you now, what is your favourite Manchester City game and why?
I mean, really difficult. But the last game before I was born, back in '68, we won the league at Newcastle. And we obviously hadn't won the league at any point during my lifetime. And when we started going and following them through the thin and thinner years, it looked like we were never going to win it again. So, 2012, Sergio, the QPR game, I mean, everything, the whole experience of being a City fan, the roller coaster, the expectation, the hope, the disappointment, the anger, and then that massive outpouring of relief at the end, as an emotional experience, let alone a football match, I don't think that can ever be topped, particularly if you're a City fan of a certain vintage. So it has to be the QPR game for me.
Stuart?
Again, thinking about it, I think for me, I moved over here in November '99. It would have to be May '99, the Gillingham game at Wembley. Myself, Anthony, a couple of friends from back home, and our late uncle went to that game with his son. And it was the last time I saw him alive. And he was a big blue, and he was the kind of guy that took me and Anthony along, when we was young. So I think for a memento, and of course the importance of the game, I was fortunate enough to meet Paul Dickoff in Sydney on the trophy tour a few months ago, and it brought it all back to me how important that game was. And I think it's difficult to put into words just the importance of it 20 years on.
Yeah.
And where it brought us. And there's been talk of a statue for Dickoff, and it wouldn't be a bad thing, because I think it's underestimated how important it actually turned out to be. So for me, it'd be that one. Although the Aguero one was very close.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, City fans will all say, where would we have been today? Would Sheikh Mansour have ever come into, bought Manchester City? And so it was just an incredible day. I always feel sorry for Horlock
Yeah.
He always seems to get forgotten, because if he didn't score, then Dicko's goal would have been irrelevant.
And also Sean Goater's assist that people forget. There was one thing about that Gillingham game that I remember. I don't know if you remember, Stu, but we were sat right next to the director's box. We were in the cheap seats, but there was a wall dividing us and the director's box.
Let me tell you.
Okay, there weren't cheap seats then. I didn't pay for them. He did, as you can gather. But Gillingham scored their second goal, and everybody, it was like somebody had just pricked a balloon. The whole atmosphere deflated, obviously, for City fans. And we were absolutely raging. We thought that was it, another season in Division 3. A guy in the director's box next to us literally leant over, put his arm on me, and said, "Don't worry, we've got this." I'll never forget that. 2-0 down. 1 or 2 minutes left. I mean, nobody could have written that, but he did it with such confidence. I almost thought the match had been fixed for a while.
Brilliant. Well, on to your next question. Your favourite all-time Manchester City player and why?
This is so difficult because the better we get, the more difficult the choice is because of the players. I guess in the early days, it was Trevor Francis. He was the first superstar in terms of the team that I followed, but it has to be one of the holy trinity of the last few years. You know, either Vinny in terms of his leadership and a world-class human being, and there was a little bit of pollen in the air when I was watching his speech at Wembley last night on the new City TV app. Sergio is just an absolute icon and legend, and by far the most famous City player around the world, not just for the QPR goal, but because of who he is. But for me, and I heard you say it as well, Andy, it has to be David Silva. He changed what I thought football was about. He made me think more about tactics, about passing, about position. An absolutely world-class player and the best creative midfielder in the last 8 or 9 years in the league. He's my all-time City hero.
Okay, over to you, Stuart.
Yeah, I think it's very close. It'd be a bit cliche if I followed Anthony's lead. For me, I think it'd have to be in the modern times, Aguero. Again, I don't think we appreciate him, I know, but he's not held in the same regard as a Messi or Ronaldo. But that's what he's been doing for us for the last 9 years.
Yeah.
And he just turns up all the time. He never shirks. Even when Pep was considering putting Gabriel Jesus in, and there was word, oh, he's not happy. You know, he came back and he was stronger than ever. Pep told him to change the way he played. And, you know, he was telling a City legend what to do.
Yeah.
And he said, highway or the highway. And Aguero, to his credit, said, well, okay, I'll show you that I can do it. And, you know, look what he's doing year in, year out. So it's so close. I mean, it's a toss of a coin between him and Silva. I think from the old days, I like Kinkladze for his cameo, and it was a cameo, but it was in that team. You know, he should have been there after 3 months. He should have gone. So I think Kinkladze old days, Aguero new, but very, very thin on the decision.
Brilliant. Stuart, I'm just going to ask you to turn your camera again for me, mate. That's it. If you can keep it over to that side, that'd be brilliant. Right, on to your next question. Your favourite all-time Manchester City goal and why?
Yeah, it was a tough choice for me. There was one that was a back-in-the-day memory. I think my first away game was an Aston Villa game. We won 5-1. David White got 4, and he got a brilliant goal for his 4th goal. And that was a special memory for me. But thinking back to modern times, you know, for me, it's the Yaya goal in the semi-final against United. That was the moment I knew we were going to overtake them. That was the moment I knew we were going to win our first trophy for so many years. And that was the moment that I knew the future of the team was going to be very, very different to the team that I'd been following for, at that point, 25 years. So the Yaya goal at Wembley was unbelievable for me because I just knew how significant it was.
Good answer, Stuart.
Again, we could, in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been plenty. Obviously, the Aguero goal, but I'm gonna go really back to one that I, you know, growing up, as Anthony will attest to this, when we grew up in Broughton, you know, with absolutely surrounded by Reds, it was very difficult. Really difficult being a City fan in the 80s. and school was a nightmare. But, you know, the Hinchcliffe header for 5-1 in the derby was the absolute rubbing the salt in the wounds
for the crowd.
And the best thing about that was he did that 5 signal because the Platt Lane was full of United fans. And and when you see that video, of which I do every month pretty much, there's just complete and utter silence in that stand. And, you know, that I can remember where I was for that game, and I can remember what followed. And it was just probably 6 months that I'd never been able to do that before and rub them in. And so for me, you know, I was 18 at the time. Amazing memory, that goal. And then that game. Left back. You know, the game first time. It was a move from this day and age. But back then, it was unheard of. You know, it was one-touch stuff down the right, over, and just straight header planted. But to be fair, Jim Leighton was net, so he wouldn't have saved anything anyway. So
it was a wonderful cross by Davy White.
It was.
Anyway, on to your last question, and this one has stumped people. So, if you could have one player, past or present, dead or alive, ex-City or play for any team in world football to fit into this Pep Guardiola system right now, who would it be and why?
Again, another tough one. I think about Colin Bell, but I didn't really see him play. I only saw him when he was coming back from his big injury, and he obviously, unfortunately, never came back properly. So I can't really comment on Colin. You think, obviously, about Messi, who's the greatest of all time. And honestly, as gifted as he is, I think our time has passed with him. I don't think he'd fit this current City team. So for me, and it's a little bit left field, it has to be Thierry Henry. Pace, skill, an absolute gentleman, an ambassador, and more importantly, an intelligent footballer. So can play in any system, can adopt, can adapt. I think he'd be perfect for this City team, not just in terms of what he does on the field, but off the field as well.
Where would you fit him in?
I think he'd play either up top or left side. So he'd go and he'd be a backup or a rotation with Sergio. And then left side, you know, I know we're blessed with Sane and Sterling and Mahrez and Silva and all those guys. But I think Thierry at his peak would be up there.
Certainly a phenomenal player. Stuart?
Well, again, really difficult answer to achieve. But I think it's a teammate of Thierry's. I think Bergkamp. Good. Now, of his day and age, you know, in that era, in that team, even in the Premier League, he was head and shoulders for me. And everything that he did in them 3 or 4 years when he was absolutely at his peak, the intelligence thing. And it's a bit like, dare I say it, if he had a bit more pace about him, Teddy Sheringham would have been right. Oof. Because he had the brains. Yeah, look, it's sacrilege, I know, but he had the brains for it. But Bergkamp, I think, would have been the perfect foil for Aguero, just behind. Who we would have replaced, I've no idea. I mean, on any given day, it could have been one of any 4, really. It doesn't really matter. They all fit in anyway. And I think for me, the level of football, even from seeing what other people have said about him, other professionals, they pretty much all put him at the top of the tree in that top 3. And because he's now fading from the memory a little bit, as they all do, it's difficult. But I think, that would be my answer. I think Bergkamp would fit into most people's teams.
Well, listen, I want to say a massive thank you to the 2 brothers who have come on, and we've done a double header today. Thank you so much. Some excellent answers and memories there, which, certainly the subscribers on Man City Fan TV, they love listening to, old school memories and things like that. So I want to say a massive thank you for coming on. I know it's early for you guys.
It's late for me. It's late for him.
Well, it's late for him, early for you. It's like trying to catch you in 2 different parts of the world. So hopefully we're about 40 minutes away from kick-off the first sort of pre-season game in Asia against West Ham. So listen, once again, I want to say a massive thank you. Are you on any social media? We always ask this question. Are you on any social media that people can follow you? If not, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. It's at AJ Catterson, Catterson. But it's mostly just nicking and retweeting other people's stuff. But it's a pretty good quality feed, if I say so myself. But yeah, people can find me there.
No problem. Stuart?
Not for me, Andy. Just a company thing, so it's irrelevant in this field. But just keep watching the apps and stuff like that. And yeah, for me, nothing on a personal level. No.
Brilliant. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for coming on this latest episode of Who Are You?
Appreciate it, Andy. Cheers, mate.